is premature, and that frankly, to the point just made by Andrew, having conversations between our two branches, between those who are here and at many other briefings, the Danish foreign minister was we met with him in the Capitol 48 hours ago, I think. There's been a great deal of very positive diplomacy between Danish representatives and Americans over the last couple of days, figuring out exactly what the right vehicle is. I think we should focus more on what is successful at de-escalating rhetoric and restoring a sense of trust between allies, rather than saying, I've got a resolution, oh, I've got a bill, no, I'm interested in moving this piece of legislation. What matters here in this moment is the outcome, and I don't think there's any disagreement about a desired outcome of a restored sense of trust and mutual respect between allies, but I'll let Senator Murkowski speak to your question.
Elaborate on that?
Of course.
It doesn't seem like that's the same opinion or the same outcome that the President and his press secretary, for example, have from the meetings that has been between Danes.
In my view, the most positive path forward would be a month from now. If I were to come back with a delegation, there'd be almost no one here, because it had stopped being a matter of alarm and understandable concern. So whatever accomplishes that objective, in my view, is the path we ought to take. Senator?
We recognize that there have been multiple approaches to what resolutions could be adopted, what legislation could be worked on. Senator Shaheen has drafted a bill that I'm a co-sponsor on that reinforces again the role of NATO and the fact that Congress has a role here. I have teamed up with Senator Gallego with regards to a joint resolution, a sense of the Senate in terms of the shared partnership. We did a resolution, Peter, that was you and I earlier last year, just reinforcing, again, the U.S.-Danish relationship. I think those are constructive, good signals of, hey, we like you, we respect the relationship, and we want to build on that. We want to underscore that. Now, taking something to a vote is different than introducing something, right? Taking something to a vote is different than perhaps a hearing before the Foreign Relations Committee where we get more information out on the table more publicly. Those types of things, again, that advance a positive, constructive dialogue, I think are good. One of the concerns and one of the fears, if you will, and it goes back to the comment that I made earlier about not wanting to make an issue partisan. Sometimes when you actually look at the vote count, it's like, whoa, the Republicans have completely gone this way and the Democrats have gone this way, and so therefore it must be a partisan divide. I don't think, again, we want to encourage any message that makes it appear that support for the Kingdom of Denmark as our trusted and friend and ally for decades and decades should be a partisan issue.
Can I say one thing real quick? I just want to also say on the House side, you know, I've talked to several Republicans. They knew that I was coming here, and they tried to adjust on the House side, adjust their schedule so that they could come. There is a desire to make sure that whatever we do on various bills that are being looked at, that is done in a bipartisan way. So the dialogue and conversation that we're having, because of the importance of the relationship with our NATO allies and Denmark and Greenland, that's not seen publicly all the time, but the conversation is happening. It is a very real conversation because of the significance and the importance, I think, on both the House and the Senate side, and we're working collectively in that way.
But just to elaborate on that, the President is also known to be a hard negotiator when he wants his way in different bills and different vote counts and so on.
We'll let that play out in the weeks ahead.
But my question is, even though that you have these conversations, which is nice to hear, there could be a concern also that the President might have a better suggestion.
It's hard to predict exactly what our President will do, and sometimes he does have better suggestions. I have a number of hands. I'm going to keep moving. Anders, if I could.
Hello, my name is Anders. I come from Politiken, a daily newspaper. From your perspective, is there anything Denmark and Greenland can do to reduce the tensions currently happening?
First, thank you. It's very helpful for Americans to understand the actual facts and the actual circumstances. Very few Americans have been to the North Slope of Alaska and really understand what that environment is like. Bluntly, most Americans don't understand the dynamics within the Faroe Islands, Greenland, Denmark, what makes up the Kingdom of Denmark, and just understanding that. Part of our role is to go back. You know, we are laying a wreath after this. Part of our job is to go back and to make sure that more Americans understand just how valuable this partnership is. But if I could quote Soren Kierkegaard, and forgive me, faith sees best in the dark. This is a moment where our very positive relationships have dimmed a bit, and I hope that the people of the Kingdom of Denmark do not abandon their faith in the American people, in our fundamental goodness, in our respect for Denmark and for NATO and for all we've done together. The Americans who were deployed and served in Iraq and Afghanistan know better than anyone that Danes served alongside them in some of the hardest missions and in some of the most difficult places and did it honorably and well. And so you've already done the hard work. We simply need to remind our nation of that so that our ongoing conversations domestically within the United States, in members of Congress, and between the branches of our government are better informed by the facts. Thank you. Please.
Yesterday, President Trump suggested that tariffs would be the solution to the United States taking possession of Greenland. Is that realistic? And if he were to take steps in that direction, do you think the Congress would find a way to stand in the way of using tariffs as a cudgel in these negotiations?
Well, one of the lovely things, as you well know, is that our government has 3 branches, and I suspect the Supreme Court will be speaking to that point soon. Look, I think that the Constitution gives to Congress more of the power that is currently being exercised in tariffs, and in a way that is perhaps novel in modern history. And I think since this is an issue directly before the court, we'll see what the Supreme Court has to say as to whether the use of tariffs as a tool against close and trusted allies to try and achieve a strategic objective is really the wisest and most available. Sir.
Senator Coons, Ian Sherwood from MS Now. Could I just ask, how much do you think the actions by Denmark and other European allies to move resources to Greenland will address the concerns of the President that is expressed? Secondly, I also believe that NATO is also working on a plan to further enforce resources in the region to address the concerns of the President. And how much do you believe that these comments by the President damage the relationship with Europe and embolden America's adversaries?
So first, I think the most pressing and current security threat in this entire region is the ongoing war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. And it bears repeating, and I will repeat back home, that the Kingdom of Denmark has been one of the strongest supporters of Ukraine, has dedicated billions of dollars, has transferred critical advanced assets, has dedicated billions of dollars to the support of Ukraine. And so to those Americans who misperceive the balance of who has put more into this urgent fight, Danes deserve great recognition for the significance and strength of their support for Ukraine. That our NATO allies choose to engage in an exercise that demonstrates a willingness to invest more in Arctic security, I think should be welcome and celebrated. I think it's important for us to realize that the High North is becoming more and more an area of concern for the longer term. NATO, because of Putin's strategic, I think, profound misstep, has doubled the length of its border with Russia, and the High North for Finland and Sweden, which is now, you know, an expanded part of NATO, is of renewed concern. So seeing active training and deployments into one of the harshest, most remote places on Earth, I think we should take as an encouraging signal. And part of the goal that animated, I think, all of us to change our plans on fairly short notice and come to Denmark was to reassure allies and partners and to rebuild some of that. We recognize those are relationships that are under some real strain at the moment. But after a very successful NATO summit, after a number of important steps in Congress to reinforce support for Ukraine, I think we should see this as positive movement by our NATO partners, that in so many ways they are stepping up and increasing their defense, their training, their investment in our shared security. Thank you all very much. It's been wonderful being with you, and thank you to this great delegation. Thank you.